Okay. Well, it's recording now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we can start, I guess. Okay. Okay, cool. So, yeah, so just to kind of recap of what we talked about, the idea behind this is just to have a one-to-one discussion with someone that has been in the field, working as a singer, as a performer, and to talk to other people as well, to have this series of kind of experts in singing or in different fields of vocal abilities and vocal techniques. So yeah, so Steve,
Hello.
you you're just off the ship, right? You
Mm-hmm.
were on a tour with, or not a tour, but you were working with Jersey Boys, no, on a ship.
Yep.
What company was it? How long were you there?
So the ship company I was working for Norwegian Cruise Line, which was under the Norwegian Creative Studios. And what they did was they brought in the original Broadway creatives from the show to set the show up and to put it on. So we worked with them closely. But then once we were on the ship, we were working for Norwegian Cruise Line. So we were technically crew members doing Jersey Boys.
Mm.
Um, but but previous to that, then obviously I was on the Jersey Boys UK tour,
Mm.
which was put up by the London associate director, and then we had a musical director who worked on things like Motown. He actually taught me at my drama school as
Oh, the
well
musical
at Bamfield.
director for the tour.
Yeah.
Nice.
He came in late, I think. He did my one of my final year musicals. He did West Side Story. I think he came in halfway and took over. So I met him on my very first audition, and I remembered who he was. So that was
Crazy.
quite nice having that connection.
Yeah.
Um, mm, so yeah, so the UK tour then was obviously the full version of the show, and on the ship we did what was it, an hour and 20 minutes of the show, and it was straight through. There was no interval. So there was a few things that were taken out and shortened,
Mm.
but the UK tour was the exact same one that was on the West End, and then it was just taken around the country
How
for 18
long?
months.
18 months. Yeah, of the tour.
Yeah.
And how many shows? And I know you were working as a swing, right? Basically.
So I was a swing. I covered 5 tracks,
Mm.
5 different roles. They were Frankie Valli, Bob Gaudio, Hank Majewski, Joe Pesci, and Barry Belson.
Mm.
So I didn't have a lot of stage time. So the shows would be 6 shows a week, with 2 days had double show days.
Mm.
And if I was lucky enough to get on, I mean, I think I did a week's run as Barry Belson, so I did 7 shows as that track. I also did 5 shows in a row as Bob Gaudio.
Mm.
I was lucky to do that. So when that happens, you actually get to feel what it's like to have to conserve yourself.
Mm.
And if you go full out, not saying that you should never go full out, but if you go full out too early, you'll peak. So by the
Right.
end of the show, you'll have to find the strength, or by day 5, you'll have to find the strength from somewhere. So it's just about knowing your own body, and after a while, it kind of becomes muscle
Mm.
memory, and which is good, because
Yeah.
that's when you get to that point, it's great.
And which one of the tracks was your favorite to do in when you got a run of shows? Which role?
So it was toss between Bob Gaudio and Barry Belson. Obviously, Bob Gaudio, because he was one of the
Mm.
Four Seasons.
Mm.
But he just had two kind of solo numbers, and
Mm.
I really enjoyed singing them myself. And Barry Belson was a fun track because he had a lot of costume changes. He would go from a policeman to a radio DJ presenter
Mm.
to a cop, another, like, just constant changing, to a waiter, to
Mm.
um, that was the fun part of that track. But then Bob Gaudio was fun because he was one of the leads.
Yeah, exactly. And but the other one it was a singing role as well, or were you doing more?
So they're all singing roles. So
Okay.
especially the ensemble tracks,
Mm.
they sing everything. So
Mm.
when you hear any of the songs, they're all the lead lines are doubled, because what they tried to do was, when Frankie Valli originally recorded his songs, he would double his own voice
Okay,
to get
right.
that boost of a sound. So they did that with the show. So if you were playing the show of Joe Pesci, you would actually end up singing most of the Frankie Valli lines in the
Wow.
songs. But what they do is, the way that the whole thing is kind of organized on the soundboard, is that it's only there to slightly boost it, so you don't hear the other voices.
Mm.
So you have to go on.
Mm. Yeah, but would you then have to, if you were doubling a voice, I know for myself when recording, you have to make sure that you hit all of the same resonance spots. You have to hit all the same ends of notes, ends of
Yes.
words. Is
Yeah.
that
So
something
we
that you
had.
had to practice? Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. And especially with Frankie Valli, because there would be two different guys playing Frankie Valli during the week, because it was
Right.
shared. It was a shared role. So one guy might sing it differently to the other guy.
Mm.
So you would really have to be in tune, watch them, and also incredibly watch the MD in
Mm.
the monitor. So
Mm.
she would, or he would, cut us off, and we would obviously have to make sure we were on it at all
Right.
times, because you would hear sometimes a little bit of a, if you didn't come off at the same time, you could hear a little bit. So it was
Absolutely.
very
That's
important.
one of my pet peeves when I'm doing any double vocal is finding when to end, like S's specifically in
S's are
expression.
very, yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah,
But
but that's why
can,
the, like, in
yeah.
rehearsals with the MD is very important,
Mm,
especially as a swing. So I would write down everything while I'm listening to the MD, and not listen to the others rehearse,
yeah.
to make sure that I got it.
Mm. And speaking of like this, especially this kind of music, this Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons music, had you known that music before you got the job?
So before I got the job, I knew, yes, because I knew of the show, and
Oh, okay.
I saw the show in the West End. The first time I saw it was at the Prince Edward Theatre. I think I was in drama school at the time.
Right.
So maybe 2008, 2009.
Mm,
And then I saw it again maybe a year and a half before I got my first audition for it. And
mm,
that was at the Piccadilly Theatre. So I
mm.
did know the show. I did know the music. Before I went to see the show for the very first time, did I know the music? I probably would have known it as much as a lot of other people. Oh, I recognize that song, but I never knew
Sure.
that they sang it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when you went to your first audition, what did you sing?
So my first audition, we had to sing our own song, and I brought Mika's Grace Kelly.
Oh, I actually think I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
So I love singing that song.
Yeah, it's
And
great.
after that, then they asked you to sing a song from the show, which they gave you, and it was "Walk Like a Man."
Oh, yeah. Okay. Wow.
But then for the recall, they had you sing "Walk Like a Man," um, "Can't Take My Eyes Off You," "Moody's Mood,"
Mm.
and was there one other? Or maybe it was just those three. But then they also had you to do 8 scenes.
Wow. 8
Yeah,
scenes. Jeez. Wow. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
And what kind of training did you do before you went for the audition? Who did you train with? What were your kind of most important points that you needed to hit? Obviously, apart from the high notes, but
Well, the thing is, I always knew I had those high notes in me,
mm,
because I always knew my falsetto was strong.
mm,
So I was confident with that. But what I wanted to work on with someone was just to get the sound right,
mm,
and to get it into my voice.
mm,
So I found a musical director who worked with a few people via Twitter, I think.
mm,
So I just went to him to go through the songs, and just to get a proper feel of them without having to think about playing the music for myself, or just doing it with
mm.
a backing track, having the piano live. So I worked with him just once, I think, before my second recall.
Can you remember
Yeah.
what he? Can you remember what he did? Can you remember what techniques or advice he gave?
What did he
Or
help me with?
how you got that? Well, you said that interesting thing of kind of letting it into your voice, right? You had the notes, but you
Yeah,
um,
I think what it feels like a long time ago now.
mm,
What he worked on was, we did, I think we might have taken away some of the consonants and just worked on the sound coming out, possibly. I think that's what we did. And just joining all the lines together and knowing when to breathe, and just having the control over the whole song, really.
And in terms of resonance, in a sense of having that falsetto that you had, did you have it and it was loud, or did you have it and you were just comfortable up there? Or
I was just very comfortable, and it was fascinating to see by the end of the tour how different it was.
Sure.
So it was never a very forward sound. It was just a very comfortable space to sing in. And by the end of the tour, it was just all here.
And you had no strain, or there was nothing happening here when you're doing a falsetto. I mean, doing a falsetto for male without kind of power, it should be very relaxed. There shouldn't be any kind of strain. But in the voice that Frankie had, and especially in the kind of the tone that you were working on in that show, it's a very, for me, it's a very different type of falsetto. It's kind of like a mixed falsetto, right? In the sense of really having that presence, and also just having these high notes.
Yeah, like it was. If I would always hope that there would be no strain and it would be free, but obviously some days there would be.
Sure.
You know, and sometimes when you're not belting out, but really kind of exerting that sound for such a long time, by the end of it, you're exhausted.
Yeah, sure.
You know, it's going to happen. We're only human.
Did you ever have a day that you couldn't speak the day after?
The day after I did my first Frankie show, because I hadn't sung it properly enough to actually get it in my body. It was just a very last minute thing. The next day I couldn't speak.
Crazy.
I woke up and it was all inflamed, because it was just, but then, especially working on the ship, I got to work with the MD quite closely, and we were able to find ways so that I wouldn't tire out. Where to pull back, where.
Yeah. And so I was just going to say, can you give us maybe some examples of how you found that?
We would go through the song very detailed. I would sing it first, and then we'd figure out, okay, well, we need to, what she used to say the word iron it out, so that it wouldn't be like this all the time, to keep it one level. So if I was, for example, starting like going high and then going down to more about my chest voice, how would I get there easily without going so sparsely and so quickly? So that'll be jarring. So we want it nice and smooth, a smooth transition between registers.
And do you have any kind of specific warm-ups or exercises that would deal with that? Other than obviously, we all know the sirens and the things like that, but are there any kind of special ones that maybe you do?
To get that, it's definitely the sirens.
Okay, right.
Definitely. So like, you know yourself, going up high, starting high, let's say, and going down low, but going through every kind of every note, hitting every note and making it smooth, and not changing register so quickly, just having that control. And then we've spoken about it before, but the whole tongue action is very important as well. Not just for the sound, but just to create more ease.
Yeah.
You know, when your tongue is involved, when there's tension there, it's hard to sing. Whereas if that tongue is relaxed and forward, then you don't really think about it, and things just happen.
What was the exercise I think you showed me before about the tongue, releasing tongue tension?
So what I used to work on with my singing teacher in New York was, I can't show now, I don't have a piece of paper, but I would use a paper towel, and I would hold my tongue, and I would pull it.
Yeah.
And I would sing, what was the exercise? Oh my God, I can't even remember now. Let's just say it was hungia or something like that, but it would just be those.
You were making sounds with your tongue out.
Making sound with the tongue out. Yeah.
So you weren't just doing one vowel or so. You were actually working your.
Yeah. So we would start doing small intervals, then we do the third, then we do the fifth, and then we do the octave.
Wow.
So it was really kind of training the vocal cords as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, the tongue is such a massive muscle and it's plunked in our mouth, and we can't really do anything about it. We just have to try every way to flatten it as much as we can when we want to make those lovely big round ahs, and allow it not go too far back when we want to make those e's and stuff. But I like this one of taking it out of your mouth, so you really feel that you have no choice other than to not have tension, basically.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so that's the tongue tension. And what about, let's say, keeping, okay, so actually maybe we just go through, I just want to just talk a small bit about like maybe your warm-up routine, maybe one that you learned, or maybe one that you do, or that you did on the ship or on the tour. Do you have anyone there kind of on hand that you could maybe show?
The one I actually tend to use myself is, so I'll just start with this one first. And it goes from a ma. Yeah. And I would just do it, let's say, in a scale down. Ma 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 ma. And I don't know why, but I really like that one.
Ma 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 ma.
Because when I used to teach my students, I would always use the M as to hold the sound in, and then when you open the mouth, it releases that sound.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
And you can kind of enjoy that kind of burst of sound. Ma 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 ma.
Exactly.
Ma.
Yeah. And it's fantastic, right? Because even in a song, when we have this time in a song, when we're going in through words and stuff, there's many, many times in sentences and in words where we will have to close our mouth.
Yeah.
Which means that we can already, I do this a lot in my singing classes, where you can already create the note. And then, as you said, enjoy that time that it's there, that it's resonating. And then all it takes is for you to open your mouth and the note is out.
Let it out.
And that's a really good exercise to ma, 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 ma. How much of it is, or maybe I'll phrase that differently. Is there a way in which you can do that exercise wrong?
So I think maybe what we don't want to do is we don't want to push it. And possibly vowel sound. So I don't know. I mean, you could probably do it with any vowel sound, to be honest. I think what you could do wrongly is push it too much. So you wouldn't want to, let's say, ma, 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 like go too far. So it's more about the ease of it, possibly.
And what about if someone was to add, let's say, a ma, 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 as in like a H before the...
So I don't think that would be helpful at all.
No.
Again, I'm not sure. I would hope someone wouldn't want to put a H before an M. But you never know. But
I've definitely come into some sort of situations where there has been many people that have put H's in front of as many.
It's an interesting habit.
It's a very interesting. It's like this kind of making sure. I don't know. It's like that, like to get phonation or to get the vocal cords together, you have to add a little breath. So I think that a lot of inexperienced singers might add this H before a lot of words to create that feeling of, oh, I'm breathing in through my vocal cords. Hey, ha, ha, or ma, or getting rid of the breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
as you said, it's something that wouldn't help at all, right? Because it's also out of many things, it's getting rid of your breath as quick as it's there, basically.
Yeah. Well, about what are they called? So that would be an aspirate.
Yeah, you were saying this the last time I was home. Maybe we can talk about that a small bit, because
I should have re-looked at this before today. So when I was learning singing at my drama school, we would learn about onsets. That's it,
Yeah,
onsets.
onset. Mhm.
So you would have a glottal onset, which is when you go, your vocal cords go bang together. Then you have your aspirate, which would be your breathy, your H sound, which is not too breathy because you've got a lot of air coming up. And then the one in the middle is, I can't remember what it's called, glottal aspirate.
On you're kind of talking about like the last one was singing on the breath, right?
Yeah, but there's a word. So
Is it?
anyway, so basically it's in the middle of those two. We don't want glottal, we don't want aspirate. We want a nice middle ground for the
Yeah,
vocal cords to just come together nice and easy.
right.
Which is, I think what you just said is singing on the breath.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I tried that actually blew my mind recently when I was getting my lessons with Katie. Because what I used to tend to do was I used to and then sing.
Yeah.
Whereas now I learned that speaking and singing is basically the same thing. So when you speak, you don't do that. You just automatically let the breath out.
Exactly.
So it would be the same with singing. So
Yeah.
breathing in and sing on the on breath, out breath,
Yeah.
which makes the chords just come together.
Yeah. It's not, maybe the thing is, I know I should have looked it up as well. And I know that I've talked about this with other people, but it's not oculated or something, right? It's because I'm using a lot of this thing now and I'm sure, you know, many singing teachers do, is using the straw for semi-oculated vocal exercises.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm not
which is
I'm not very knowledgeable on that
okay.
area at all. And I had a singing lesson the other week with one of my singing teachers, and she suggested the straw work. And I've never really done it before, so it's something that I might try to get into and see
Yeah,
if it helps.
it's something that I would definitely recommend. I know from experience myself doing it that it really helps. And it's also from feedback from students. It's incredible what 10 minutes of a straw exercise will do to a student, and how it affects their singing afterwards and how much more warm they feel. It's kind of basically what it is, and not to get into, because I know that I'm still only learning about it, but the semi-oculated vocal technique things is the straw, singing through the straw, and it creates a back pressure of air that goes back in through your mouth and creates a chasm of very healthy warm up for your resonation and your vocal cords, so that they're not doing too much. So when you do, let's say, when I know we should start usually on that kind of thing, that's also like a semi-oculated kind of thing, where it means that the vocal cords aren't being, you know, strongly used in the sense of like it's really safe to do. And then obviously when we do an ah and it goes straight onto an ahs or e's or oohs, then the vocal cords are really having to work much harder. And the way in which that the straw works is really to create easy warm-ups that kind of do just as much as big vocal warm-ups, but in a shorter space of time and more intensely. Right. And they say not to do it any more than 10 minutes because I'm not sure why. I think maybe it could not that it could be dangerous, but maybe it's a bit too
Fatiguing.
intense. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I know I had a student that we started doing the straw technique a couple of months ago, and he texted me the following day and he said, I've been doing it now for 25 minutes and now I need to, now it's not painful, but I really feel like here is kind of fiery, right? Or
Swollen, maybe?
swollen, yeah. And I kind of thought, damn it, I really should have told him not to do it any more than 10 minutes. That was a problem for me, but I have learned from that mistake, and I've been telling my students since then to do it really 5 to 10 minutes, and that's it. But yeah, anyway, so okay, so you do the kind of the ma ma ma
Yeah.
ma.
And then another good one is lip trills.
Right. What if you can't do lip trills?
You can't do lip trills. I think everyone can.
Do you think so?
I think everybody can, but it's, if you can't, it's learning how to do it correctly.
Right.
Because a lot of people, when they first start off, I used to have this with my kids at my stage school that I used to teach at. Some of them, like out of 15, 2 of them couldn't. It wasn't a large amount at all. 2, maybe 3 couldn't. And it's about the whole, I mean, you know yourself, it's about the controlling of the air. And I think the pushing up of the cheeks really helps, but it's getting it correctly as well. So some people would push too far forward, some people push the wrong area. I think it's practice, but I do think everybody can. It just means if you can't, you have to practice.
Right. You're totally right. It's about allowing that airflow to be constant and controlled enough that it's not overexerting, and allowing the lips to. But also I read something interesting about allowing the lip bubbles or the lip trills not to be too horse-like, because some people can go,
oh yeah,
you know, and then it's kind of like that horse sound, like. But if you kind of control it a bit more, and you, as you said, pushing up the cheeks and stuff, and I found a nice way of just pinching the cheeks is quite nice too. And you really have this forward nice sound.
Yeah. What did I do? I went to another singing, I've gone to a few now. I went to another singing teacher last year, I think. And what she had me do was sing a phrase of a song that I was working on with her. Like half of the phrase, let's say, or just one phrase of it, 3 times in a lip trill. But what I was also doing was I was making a very kind of dopey sound. So it wasn't forward. I was creating, it was more like a crying sound, but inside my mouth.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
I think so.
So I would do, let's say if I was doing instead of,
okay, interesting.
because what she was working on was getting the larynx in a kind of neutral position.
And that's a way to get the larynx in a neutral position.
In that crying sound will not force the larynx down, but it will push it down a little bit. Rather than if we do a forward sound, what tends to happen is the larynx goes straight up.
True. Yeah.
Which is a big problem for me. I have that problem a lot. My larynx kind of sits up high, like it's quite high at the moment.
Yeah.
So that's what she did anyway. And after doing the exercise for doing it 3 times, I opened my mouth to sing the lyrics, and I actually got very emotional because the sound was something I'd never heard before coming out of my mouth. I didn't have to think about what was coming out of my mouth. It just flew out. Wow. I turned to her and I said, "Oh my God, I sound like a man. Like I sound like what I should be sounding like, what I think I hear, what I want to sound like." That, and it was an incredible moment. I mean, it's a long process if you were to do that whole song, you know, that whole way. But it was a very interesting exercise.
Wow, that's a big moment. Yeah. And who did you say that was with? That was with
a woman called Julie Gossage in London, who's part of herself and her husband run a singing technique called vocal balance, and they work with a lot of West End people.
Right, I follow them on Instagram actually, and
because they do the straw work.
They do.
They use a vocal tube.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think the vocal balance. I think they did a
live warm up.
I watched it actually. It was quite good. Yeah, it was quite good. Yeah, but it's great, right? The amount of resources out there for singers and for singing teachers and for people interested in singing and the voice. It's kind of endless, the amount of things that we can learn online. But I think that, as you said, this very important moment of having a personal touch from a teacher in the room in a kind of an intensive way is something that I think you can't and won't ever get from online learning.
No, absolutely. It's invaluable. Is that the word? Invaluable to be with a teacher in person.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately they can be quite expensive. So, you know, not everybody can afford that. But that's why it is so great having the resources on let's say YouTube and stuff. But
Absolutely.
I think what's interesting though is that voice teaching, voice technique is always constantly changing though. You know, like some of the stuff that I might have been taught maybe a few years ago, now my teacher is saying, no, we don't do that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of like the other thing of like foods being healthy and then foods not being healthy.
Yeah.
You know, and don't eat a lot of meat, do eat a lot of meat kind of thing. Don't eat eggs, do eat eggs kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think it is changing, and I think because of the amount of resources that we have online, there are many people that are debunking old techniques, and in a way of kind of looking at it more towards kind of the physiology of the voice and the actual.
Yeah, that's really something that's coming up apparent at the moment, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it
really
is
interesting.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, look, last thing is I want to ask for so I mean, you gave me some of your favorite kind of warm-ups and techniques and stuff like that, but I wonder, could you maybe give us like your ultimate, so we had the lip bubbles, we had the ma, 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 but is there any other one that you couldn't go through a singing lesson with someone without doing this? Is there another one, maybe?
Let me think. I would, do you know what? For a lot of people, it's breathing. So what I tend to do a lot is actually just connecting to your own breath and releasing the belly.
Right.
Because we all, you know, especially at the moment, everyone's tense. We're all anxious. You know, we're human, but we tend to hold that in our stomach, and we can't release it and let the sound out if we can't release that belly,
right,
and just let it out, and kind of, and then breathe naturally, which some people find difficult to do sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's
when I
it's in there, you kind of go, oh, it's
yeah, exactly. If I turn around and say breathe naturally, someone will kind of just go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Are there any? I mean, can you name maybe one of your breathing exercises?
What I would tend to go to do would be just a very simple breathe in, and the moment that you need to breathe out, make a sound, just a sigh.
Oh, okay.
So it's not something massive. It's just very simple. But making that sigh on the out breath. We don't hold it for any moment. So we don't go, no, we want to breathe in, and do that over a few times. Sometimes you might get a little lightheaded, but it's about creating a cycle of the breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out, because that's what we do every day. I'm doing it right now when I'm talking and I'm not thinking. So we want to get that into our bodies for singing.
I think that's an interesting point. That's great. Yeah, I actually really like that, in the sense of not overcomplicating it too much, just allowing people to connect with the breath and then make a sound.
Yeah.
And hopefully that sound comes out in a way that it feels natural and feels I always kind of look, when I'm doing a singing lesson, I always look for asking people to look for consistency, right? To kind of look in a sense that like, try and find that moment where it's always going to feel like the same. So it's kind of muscle memory, kind of training your body to connect the two. But another, just the last point, I guess, is the thing that you tipped on a while ago, and you just said it again there, which is allowing the singing to be kind of as easy or as simple as speaking. Right? Is that something that you're very kind of set on, in a sense of like, have you thought about that much, or was that kind of an off the cuff?
That was through my coaching with Katie in New York.
Right.
I used to always think singing was here and speaking was here, and they were two separate things. Even though at drama school we were told a few times that they were connected, but I was so young I never even it went in one ear and out the other.
Right.
Whereas now, 10 years later, I'm now realizing that they're connected. And I still struggle with that. So sometimes when I sing, I push too much, and it's hard. And then other times I'll be singing, I'll be like, why was that so easy? Oh, because I wasn't thinking about it. I was just opening my mouth and let the sound come out.
Right. You know Natalie Weiss or Natalie
Yeah.
Weiss? Yeah. I've been watching her for quite a while, and especially her lovely singing classes that she puts up for everyone to watch, just in her room. And she's a big believer in that, in the sense of like, and then be able to sing that just as you would kind of doing a sigh or speaking, oh my God, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it really makes them like the world of difference, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of makes sense for some people.
Yeah.
Some people mightn't, like I didn't until now, but some people it actually goes, oh, that does make sense actually.
Yeah.
Because if I can make that sound up there, why can't I sing it?
Exactly. I do this a lot with people that maybe start singing for the first time with me. To allow them to get used to where their different voices lay, or where they lie, in a sense of doing your woohoo, finding your top range, your head voice, your falsetto for males, and then, hey, finding your kind of mix or chest, and then going or oh, to try and find that real deep chest voice and stuff. And again, it's kind of in this box of trying to get to the easiest, most relatable sound that they use on a daily basis, but they forget that that's just what singing is too. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
cool. Okay, well, great. Thank you very much, Steve. I appreciate it, man.
You're welcome.
That was good. Really interesting. Maybe we do this again soon. We can talk some other stuff. We might go through other warm-ups and stuff. We might just maybe even just do a duo or a dual singing lesson between the two of us. That could be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry. Getting distracted.
That's good. Okay, cool. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it.
No problem. Okay. No problem. Stay safe.
You too. Stay healthy. Bye-bye.